Tilehurst End podcast
by Reading fans for Reading fans.
Hello and welcome to the Tilehurst End podcast extra in association with the Working in Paper for today, Thursday the 5th of April. My name is Olly Allen, your host for today's show. I'm delighted to be joined once again by the Working in Paper's Tom Crocker. Morning Tom, how are you?
Morning Ollie, not too bad, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. We do finally have a win to talk about, but we also have a crushing defeat to talk about as well.
Yeah, I couldn't quite get two in the same week. That's a bit too much to ask at the moment.
Of course, it was Paul Clement's first two games in charge since we last recorded, and we'll start back to last Friday against QPR. Finished a 1-0 win to the Royals, a superb victory at the Mazda last Friday. Sonny Luca, of course, grabbed the only goal of the game after an excellent strike after a good turn and a good run, whilst Vito Minone, of course, ensured that the Royals took all 3 points with an excellent penalty save to deny Jake Bidwell from the spot in the second half injury time. Jan Kermgren, of course, who came on as a substitute, got sent off for 2 yellow card offences. Mark and Johnny reviewed this game in some detail over on the main show early in the week, so for a more in-depth look on that, I would thoroughly recommend going and listening to that if you haven't already. But what were your thoughts on this game, Tom? Obviously, I think a lot of people will probably say that whilst Reading sort of were perhaps a little lucky to claim the win, sort of on the balance of play, you certainly couldn't fault the dogged backs to the wall defending, as many players put their bodies on the line to see out the win and a clean sheet as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, obviously it wasn't the perfect performance or anything like that, far from it really, but the position they're in, it was a game they really had to win. Obviously we saw what happened on Tuesday. There's tough away games coming up and they had to just pick up some points at home, and yeah, it was a brilliant goal from Aluko. And after that, I think Paul Clement said afterwards when I asked him, it's sort of natural instinct to sit back and try and defend what they had, and they tried to push on a little bit more in the second half, but so as soon as that red card came, sort of 10-15 minutes ago, it was just real backs to the wall stuff. And yeah, they needed a Minone save right at the end. I think it's probably one of those games where if Yap was still in charge, they probably wouldn't have got that luck and they would have drawn it, and it would have been another disappointing evening. But yeah, they got the bit of luck. He made the save, and yeah, like you say, it was dogged defending. All the players were working hard for the team, and you can't fault it on that score really. I think it's just you'd want to see a bit more going forward. I'm not sure you can do that for every game, but in the situation they're in, they just need to grind out the results anyway really. And yeah, I think they did that on Friday. There was a good crowd in there as well, which is nice to see. It was a good noise inside there, and it was one of the standout moments of the season. I think, albeit not a sparkling performance, it was just the way they ground it out. It was just it made for a memorable evening, I think.
I think certainly in the position that we're in, I think we'll take points no matter how they come. Certainly if the performance wasn't there, certainly the 3 points was certainly much valued. Obviously, as we saw with the results around us, sort of if we hadn't picked up those 3 points, then we would be looking very, very nervously over our shoulders. Indeed, we move on then to Tuesday. So only a brief look at QPR because the main show discussed it in more detail, but we move on to Tuesday night then, a 3-0 defeat at Villa Park, unfortunately. The goals coming from Bikjar Bjarnason, an Icelandic name that I probably butchered completely. Conor Hurricane and Scott Hogan got the other ones as well. They all came in the second half though. Obviously, of course, this was affected by Dave Edwards' red card on a half-hour mark. Sort of a stupid challenge really to pick up a second yellow card, and it came, of course, after he gave away the penalty as well on Friday with a similarly reckless challenge. And many people have sort of blamed Tuesday's defeat on Edwards, and who knows what the result would have been if he had stayed on the pitch. But do you think this criticism is fair, Tom? Obviously, I think a lot of people are sort of pointing out he's not really done or contributed an awful lot since his arrival from Wolves in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite uncharacteristic. I think he put a post up yesterday. It's the first ever red card he's got, and it's just something you wouldn't expect. And similarly from Jan on Friday, just a silly challenge when you're already on a yellow card from an experienced player is not what you expect to see. I think the challenge Edwards did on Friday, like you say, it went a little more unnoticed because they missed a penalty, but that was also a stupid challenge, like you say. And Tuesday night, he's gone in for a needless sliding challenge on the halfway line with no real danger, and I think he's just eager to get himself about the pitch and keep his place in the team. He's obviously been picked to start both games, so he wanted to try and keep that. But yeah, I think even before that, it was sort of back to the wall a little bit from the start. Really, Villa were dominating possession, and Reading were defending in spells, and you would imagine they would have found a way to break through eventually. Obviously, I guess the hope was to try and do what they did on Friday, nick a goal and try and see out that way. But obviously we won't know what would have happened had he stayed on. But I think it's just to say, just because of that red card would be a bit harsh in the fact that Villa were, like I say, on top before that anyway, and as soon as they scored at the start of the second half, you feared it might get a bit embarrassing, and it would be difficult to try and get back into it. Obviously, Paul Clement changed the team, put Sam Smith up front, and at half time had to sort of completely change his plan really, and I think he's dropped in too deep and just couldn't really get out. And I think Paul Clement said after the game they sort of forgot to attack during the game, which something they need to. It's this sort of natural instinct, I suppose, to try and just see out the after the Friday, see it out and try and nick a 1-0 or a 0-0 or something. But yeah, as soon as they fell behind, it never really looked like changing, I don't think. And yeah, to just pin it all on the red card, I think would be a bit over the top, I think.
As you mentioned there, obviously, Ed has apologised on social media, saying, I just wanted to apologise to everyone associated with Reading Football Club for costing us the game last night. I'm in a team to tackle and break up play, but with my experience, I shouldn't be making that second tackle. My first red card in 539 appearances, and one that I'd like to forget. If I get the chance to push the team forward, rest assured I will, like I always try to do every game. So certainly very honest from certainly an experienced pro. And obviously, as you mentioned there, Jan Kermigan obviously getting a red card on Friday as well. And after just the one previous sending off all season, obviously Thiago Ilori on the opening day against QPR. What can we sort of take from this, Tom? Is it sort of overall good to be seeing sort of a bit more passion and desire from the squad, albeit perhaps a bit too much? Or should we sort of really be expecting better from two of the most experienced specialists in the squad, in Kermigan and Edwards?
Yeah, a bit of both really. Like I say, it's just the passion, but you need to sort of channel that. You can't just be going around sliding in on the halfway line. I think that would be the big disappointment. But yeah, like you say, from those two, you wouldn't really expect it. I think it's quite remarkable he hasn't had a red card in over 500 games for a central midfielder. It's quite impressive, really. But yeah, he's just got caught out. I think it was the conditions on the night, and like I say, he just wanted to try and impress and put himself about a bit, and it's just mistimed it really. And yeah, from those two guys, Jan's one was a little bit different. I don't think I think Paul Clement felt was a little bit harsh, but I think when you look back at it, he did sort of jump into him when he lost control of the ball. He looked a bit rusty ever since he came on Friday, actually, and just got caught out there. The first yellow card was stupid as well, blocking a free kick. So those are things you don't really expect from those guys. But yeah, I'm sure Paul Clement will have a word and try and just calm things down a little bit. But yeah, I think it comes a little bit from the passion that they showed on Friday night. Sometimes it can boil over a little bit, and if they can channel that in the right way, it can turn into a positive thing. But yeah, if they pick up a red card every week, it's going to make things a lot more difficult. Looking
at the result as a whole, then obviously, should we be that surprised that this result came here? Obviously, I think for me, Friday's win sort of massively got many fans' hopes up, despite us not playing that well, and certainly going away to a side pushing for promotion was always going to be a difficult task, and it certainly wouldn't have been pinpointed as one of the more vital games in Reading's final set of fixtures.
Well, now on Tuesday night, it's like I say, I think they thought the away games are really tough, and I think they're going to have to pick up the points at home. I think everyone acknowledges that, really. I'm sure the management acknowledge that too, even though they sort of say they want to go into every game and win it. I think it would have been fairly happy with the way the week's gone in terms of the results. I think they would have taken 3 points from it, to be honest, and they pushed 5 points clear of the bottom three now, and I think that has to be the bigger picture. They're not really in a position at the moment to be going away to these top teams and picking up anything, unless they produce a sort of an outstanding performance. But yeah, in terms of, it looks a lot better, I think, than this time last week. You can see that they can win a game at home now, and the home games they've got are certainly winnable ones. And yeah, I don't think they can write too much on what happened on Tuesday night. Like I said, I think it's going to be difficult. Whichever way they set up, whoever was in charge, they were always likely to probably come off second best against a side who are looking to get promoted. So yeah, I think obviously the manner in which they've lost is a bit disappointing. But if they can get something on Saturday, I think it will be quickly forgotten again.
You look at the stats from both of these two games, they don't make for fantastic reading, but the Royals had 33% possession against QPR and then just 22% against Villa. So despite obviously suggestions that Paul Clement might be quite similar to the Amsterdam, the amount of time we spent on the ball has certainly been very, very different. Obviously, admittedly, that percentage against Villa has probably been affected by the fact that we played with 10 men for an hour. Across the two games, we've had just 9 shots, with only one being on target, that being Sonny Luca's goal, of course. Well, we faced a total of 55 shots, and obviously, as we mentioned there, we can't read too much into Paul Clement's first 2 games in charge to make a full judgment. And obviously, we did get the win on Friday night, but he's not had a revolutionary effect so far. We aren't playing drastically better, are we?
No, I think he's probably just come in, and I think if they keep threading up and go again next season, I think you might see that changing a little bit. But right now, like I mentioned, they just need to grind out the win on Friday, and they managed to do that. I say as they dropped in deeper and deeper, which you can sort of expect when you haven't won for so long. I think they've all probably been in that situation before, and there were a lot of shots, but in fairness, Maloney didn't have too many saves to make there. Most of them were getting blocked around the edge of the box, so they'll probably feel they had it under control reasonably until obviously the penalty right at the end. They were keeping them at arm's length, if you like, and they didn't need to score a goal, I suppose, when they were 1-0 up. So I think you can look at it like that. And then on Tuesday, I think of the amount of shots that probably was affected by the red card, and you could say it hasn't been revolutionary in terms of the style of play, but the style of play wasn't working before, so they need to change something. He's come in and he's got a clean sheet in his first game, a win in his first game, and if he can do that for the next 3 home games, then they'll be safe and that'll be job done. So I think if he saves over the summer and they look at it next season, they'll probably will try and implement a few more things. But with the team he's got right now, he just has to try and grind out the results anyway. Really, I think all the fans will probably appreciate that as well.
Yeah, we are certainly better off than when he came in. Obviously, we are now 19th in the table on 39 points, which is the same tally as both Bolton and Birmingham in 20th and 21st respectively, meaning all 3 of those teams are now 5 points ahead of Barnsley in the relegation zone on 34 points in 22nd. Barnsley do, of course, they have a game in hand after their fixture with Nottingham Forest was postponed due to a waterlogged pitch on Monday, so that gap could potentially only be 2 points depending on the result of that game. So the danger's certainly not gone away yet, and obviously we've seen Birmingham go on a run of 3 straight victories, and it shows that anything can and probably will happen in this relegation fight still to go.
Yeah, I think all those teams down the bottom have picked up points fairly recently, so none of them are sort of dead and buried. Obviously, Sunderland picked up a win the other day, and Burton picked up a point against Middlesbrough, so they're all still scrapping it out there. And Reading do still need to get a couple more wins, but I think you would expect them to now. You look at the games they've got, and it's certainly obviously it's in their hands, and that's the position you want to be in at this stage of the season. But yeah, it's certainly not quite done and dusted yet. Obviously, you look at Birmingham, and you would imagine now that with that run they're putting together, that they'll probably be okay. And Bolton are dropping back in a little bit, and like you say, Barnsley got the game in hand, so you can't be too sure there. But yeah, Bolton and Sunderland are a little bit adrift. But so if Reading lose on Saturday, that gap could come right down again, and the trip to Fulham on Tuesday, it's gonna look a bit dicey again. But I think they showed enough on Friday, I think, to show that they can grind out these wins, and they've got good enough players in the team to do it. It's just a case of, I think, 2 more home wins might well be enough, and maybe a point somewhere else, and that should be okay. But yeah, it's certainly not all over just yet.
Yeah, I think certainly you look at the games sort of like Sunderland and against Ipswich at home. Both sort of, I reckon those 2 games are probably the 2 games that they're pinpointing to get those 2 victories from. And obviously we face Preston at home on Saturday as well, which also could be a winnable game. But before we do look ahead to that one, there are 2 small bits of news to talk about. First off, just after we finished recording last week, actually, Reading announced that Nigel Gibbs and Carl Halaby would be joining Paul Clement's backroom staff at the Madstad, and this to me was a really good bit of news. And obviously, Clement has worked with both of them before, and obviously, more importantly, both of them know the club, having worked here previously, including when we won promotion in 2012.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of thing obviously gets the fans straight back on side. Everyone was hoping Nigel Gibbs, I think, would come back when Paul Clement came in, and like you say, they've worked at Swansea. I think they were trying to get those 2 guys in pretty quickly, and yeah, I think that's just something everyone likes to see. Reading people back at the club. We obviously got Michael Gilks there as well this season, so they're building a bit of a team there, and yeah, I think that's just good news, really. I don't think anyone will be disappointed at hearing those 2 guys coming back in. Like you say, got promotion before Nigel Gibbs, and yeah, it's certainly two good appointments. They needed a couple of people in after the other guys left, so good to get them in pretty quickly. And yeah, they're well-known faces around the place, so that will obviously help, I think.
And in more good news, we've seen Danny Loader nominated for the LFE Championship Apprentice of the Year award this week as part of the EFL Awards, and it's great recognition obviously for the youngster who of course was part of the England under-17 squad that won the World Cup last October. This season for the under-23s, he's netted 5 goals and 2 assists in 12 appearances, and of course also made his first team debut against Millwall in the EFL Cup last August. And Loader is up against Fulham's Ryan Sessegnon and Sheffield Wednesday's Alex Hunt for the award, so you would probably expect Sessegnon to win it simply because he's had an incredible season. But regardless, it's great to see Loader nominated, and he's certainly got a very, very big future.
Yeah, you'd imagine Sessegnon will pick it up, but it's a bit of a shame that Loader hasn't really got a look in the league. I think if they had got a couple more wins earlier this season, I think Yap probably would have thrown him in. He very much liked him, but just the position they were in, he couldn't really get him any minutes, and it looks like he's probably going to go through the whole season without playing in the league now, quite possibly, which, like I say, it's a shame, but he's still young. He's got the England experience there. He's done well for the 23s, and hopefully over pre-season, maybe next season, we can see a bit more of him. But yeah, it's great recognition for him. He's someone with a bright future, and you've just got to hope that future is at Reading first and foremost. As see, if they do go down, then he's going to be someone who people might look at. But yeah, he's certainly someone with a big future, and it's great to see him added onto that sort of list. And I'm sure he'll score plenty of goals for Reading when he's given the chance. Yep,
the results will be announced on the 15th of April, I believe. So look out for that one. But as we say, I think probably Sessegnon has probably got the edge on that. So very, very highly rated at Fulham. We will move on now then to talk about Saturday's game, which is Preston visit the Medeski Stadium. And Preston, of course, still in contention for a playoff place. They sit 10th in the Championship on 60 points, which is 3 points behind Middlesbrough in 6th. They have, however, of course, lost both of their last 2 games to Derby and Sheffield Wednesday. So we could, I think, probably see one of 2 things happen here. I think either they sort of stay in this mini rut and Reading can get something out of the game, or Preston sort of come to the Mansstad desperate to turn their form around and sort of stay in the playoff mix and, as such, beat Reading quite handsomely, perhaps.
Yeah, hopefully not the second one. But yeah, it's, hopefully we get that Saturday home win we're still waiting for, and probably about a year now. I haven't looked at the date, but I think it's probably about a year. But yeah, they'll come here. They've dropped down a few places, but they're still only 3 points off the playoffs. They're still going to be a dangerous side, and like you say, I think they've lost 3 of the last 4. They've only won 3 of the last 10 games, I think. So they're struggling a little bit to get over the line, but I think they're still a solid team. I think Alex Neil's still a good manager, and you look through their team, perhaps not the standout names, but they're a good solid side who are always difficult to beat. And I think especially at their place, Reading have struggled in the last couple of years. So yeah, they're still right up there, and I'm sure they'll come to Reading and look at that as a game that they can win and get back into the playoff mix. They'll certainly look at it as a game like that. And I think for Reading, like we mentioned, they got difficult away games. They need to pick up the points at home, and both teams will go into it knowing that they really need to get all 3 points. So it makes for a sort of a fascinating game, I think.
Yeah, of course, Preston's trip to the Mansstad last season was Yapstam's first competitive game in charge with a 1-0 win to Reading. But obviously back in August earlier this season, Preston beat Reading 1-0. Jordan Hugill scored the only goal of the game that day, and obviously he was a summer target for Reading, but he did move to West Ham in January. So sort of as a result, you sort of look at their key threats, the likes of Sean Maguire. He's got 9 goals and 3 assists this season, and Tom Barkhuizen, who's got 8 goals and 7 assists. But overall, they have scored the fewest goals in the top half of the table, perhaps not helped by Hugill's departure. So it could be quite a tight game, perhaps. Yeah,
like I said, you look at it, you read out the numbers there. I don't think they're obviously not top. None of those guys are near the top scorers of the league or anything. They seem to have a good team unit and seem to be difficult to beat usually. But yeah, last few weeks they've struggled a little bit, and yeah, I think, like I say, both teams will fancy their chances, and it probably will be quite tight, because I think both teams aren't used to winning too many games recently. So like we saw last week, maybe if they get ahead, they might try and protect it a little bit. So yeah, I think it will certainly be quite a tight one, but it's one that, like I say, Reading can go into. I think can be fairly confident they can get something from it.
In terms of the Royal squad for this game, then the injury list is still fairly substantial. We saw John Daly Bodvarsson. He didn't play. He played no part against either QPR or Villa. Is he expected to be back this weekend, or also have the likes of Paul McShane, Tommy Elphick, Omar Richards today? How close are they to full fitness?
Yeah, I think Tommy Elphick's a little bit further away, but I think they're all sort of closing in. It's just a case of whether they'll be ready just yet. 'Cause obviously there's 2 more games coming up this week. I think there's Paul Clement will give a bit of an update, I'm sure, later on, perhaps when this has gone out already. But yeah, there's, like you say, the squad that he's got at the moment is pretty thin, really. You look at everyone who's been in the squad, is probably everyone that's fit to be in the squad. I don't think he's had too many choices to make, Paul Clement, really. I think they only seem to have 17, 18 fit players, and you have to hope that, obviously I don't think Bodvarsson's was meant to be too serious, so hopefully he can come back in. I think they've got a bit of an issue up front at the moment. They're not quite sure who they're going to play up there. Obviously tried Sam Smith the other night, and Chris Martin's struggling a bit, and obviously Jan will be back this weekend, but he hasn't started a game for a while, so there's certainly a gap up there. And obviously they've lost Dave Edwards as well now, so that's another gap to fill at the weekend. I think obviously John Swift didn't play on Tuesday, but he doesn't tend to play 2 games in the week, so I'd expect him to start on Saturday. So that'll be probably one change, and then like you mentioned, the other guys, I think they're all closing in, but whether they can come back on Saturday, not too sure just yet.
We mentioned Omar Richards. Then obviously we've seen Tyler Blackie obviously play both of Clement's first games in charge, and it was quite impressive against QPR actually. And considering that we was perhaps touting Omar Richards to be Reading's left back from now until the end of the season, obviously until he picked up an injury, it certainly would be an interesting battle between Richards and Blackett when Richards returned to full fitness. Yeah,
I was really pleased for Tyler on Friday. I thought he played really well, and I think it's probably helped a little bit by the way they're playing. It was more of a defensive job. He wasn't really asked to get up and down the flank, and if he's in there defending as a 4, I think he's more capable to do that than he is to get up there and put the crosses in maybe. So between him and Richards, I think Richards is more of an attacking fullback. So for certain games, I'm sure he'll get the nod when he's back fit again. But yeah, in terms of it, I think when he got subbed off again in that game against Millwall, Tyler didn't play for a long while, so it's good to see him just back involved in the team now. And when you see his name on the team sheet, it's not a panic as maybe it was pretty soon after that game. So it's good that he's back in there and he's back involved and playing decent football again. And he's an option that they need at the back. He's relatively experienced compared to the likes of Omar Richards, and I think he's just he will probably play again at the weekend, you'd imagine. And like you say, he played well on Friday, which I think was good for him.
Absolutely, yeah. All things considered then, Tom, how do you see this game panning out on Saturday for the Prediction League?
I think I'm going to try and be positive and go for a win. It's hard to when they've only won 2 out of 20 games, I think it is. But Preston, like I say, they've only won 3 out of their last 10, so there's possibly could be a win. I think I'm going to go for a 2-0 win, and hopefully that will at least put some relegation fears to bed for a little while.
Another clean sheet as well, which would be certainly very welcome. I think I'm going to go for slightly less optimistic. I'm going to go 1-1. I did say that we would beat QPR last Friday, so hopefully we can get a second win. But I don't know. I think Preston's position in the league, despite their poor run of form, I think they could provide quite a stern test. But I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. As we come towards the end of the show, then Tom, what can we look forward to on the working and paper in the next few days?
Yeah, so I'm actually missing the game on Saturday. I'm swapping the Madstead for the new camp on Saturday night. So
that is not a bad substitute at all.
Yeah, I think I can be let off there. So they'll probably get the win now I'm not there, actually, which would be quite typical. But yeah, we've got cover for that game, so I'll put all the information on that on Twitter. And then we've got Simeon's piece that he wrote about the first couple of games that will be going up online today as well on Wokenham.today and on Twitter at Tom J. Crocker.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you very much, as ever, for joining me this week.
Cheers, Ollie. And
of course, stay tuned to the Tyler's Den as well for full coverage of the Preston game and of course the trip to Fulham next Tuesday. Myself and Tom will be back next week. Not entirely sure when. Obviously, we understand that the press conferences have been moved to Thursday, so obviously not great for when we record, so we might potentially move the podcast extra recording back or forward or back to the Friday, so we can sort of get the information from Paul Clement's press conference first, the likes of injury news, so perhaps potentially moving that back to Friday. But we will update you on that. And of course, when we do return next week, we'll look back on those 2 tricky games against Preston and Fulham, and then preview the potentially more easier test against Sunderland next weekend. Certainly that will be a key game in a relegation fight, in a game that Paul Clement will have pinpointed to try and get 3 points from. The main show will be back early next week, so keep an eye out for that. But until then, thank you very much for listening to today's show, and come on yours.
Get social with the boys.
Find them on Twitter
at the Tilehurst End
and facebook.com/the Tilehurst End.